Commander Minho Park's knuckles turned white as he gripped the railing of the observation deck. Through the reinforced viewport of the UES New Seoul, he watched humanity's last hope fade into streaks of light. Transport ships carrying families, children, scientists, and dreamers vanished one by one into hyperspace, bound for worlds so distant and harsh that even the Federation's detailed star charts marked them as uninhabitable zones. The bridge hummed with tense activity behind him. Officers moved with practiced efficiency, but Minho could feel their barely contained rage. These weren't just military personnel. They were witnesses to the greatest injustice the galaxy had ever seen. Sir, Civilian Transport Group 7 has cleared the hyperspace barrier, Lieutenant Gina Kim reported, her voice crackling through the comm system. Despite her professional tone, Minho caught the tremor of fury she was fighting to suppress. That's 17 million souls scattered across 43 different systems, all beyond Federation space. 17 million. The number hit him like a physical blow. Just 5 years ago, humanity had celebrated reaching a population of 50 million across their 12 colony worlds. Now, 2/3 of their people were refugees exiled to the galaxy's most dangerous frontier regions, where space pirates, stellar anomalies, and hostile alien creatures made survival a daily battle. The irony wasn't lost on him. Humanity had joined the Galactic Federation only 80 years ago, young and eager to contribute to the grand alliance of civilized species. They'd brought fresh ideas, innovative technology, and an unshakable belief that all sapient beings deserved freedom and dignity. That belief had made them powerful allies among the Federation's oppressed member species and dangerous enemies to those who profited from the existing order. Minho's personal communicator chimed softly. The final message from Hyun Lee, humanity's former ambassador to the Federation Council, played for the 100th time. Even now, Hyun's words carried the weight of prophecy. They fear what we represent, Minho. Change, progress, hope for the oppressed species they've kept under their boot for centuries. The Vakari want to maintain their stranglehold on interstellar trade. The Zenthari Collective refuses to acknowledge the sentience of artificial intelligences we've proven are fully conscious. The hegemony can't accept that their warrior caste system is nothing but organized brutality. The transmission crackled with interference from the Federation's jamming systems, but Hyun's voice remained clear and determined. We showed the galaxy that a former slave species could rise to become traders and diplomats. We proved that synthetic beings could create art and feel love. We demonstrated that strength comes not from domination, but from lifting others up. That terrifies them, because it means their entire civilization is built on lies. The message ended with static, just as it had every time before. Hyun Lee had vanished during the final tribunal hearings, likely imprisoned or worse by Federation security forces. The man who had dedicated his life to peaceful diplomacy had become another casualty of humanity's exile. A soft footstep approached from behind. Captain So-min Choi, commander of the colony ship Eternal Journey, moved to stand beside Minho at the viewport. Her weathered face reflected years of deep space travel, but her eyes burned with the same determination that had driven humanity to the stars. "The destroyers are moving into position," she said quietly, nodding toward the distant Federation fleet. 6 massive warships, each capable of turning a planet's surface into molten glass, formed a perfect attack formation around humanity's abandoned colonies. They're not just banishing us, they're erasing every trace that we were ever here. Minho watched as the lead destroyer, a Zenthari battlecruiser bristling with plasma cannons, aligned its weapons array with New Busan colony. The settlement had been home to 3 million humans just weeks ago. Now it stood empty, its cities dark, its spaceports silent. In moments it would be nothing but radioactive ash. "The Federation wants the galaxy to forget we existed," Minho said, his voice barely above a whisper. "They want history to record that humanity was just another failed species that couldn't adapt to civilized society." The first destroyer opened fire. Brilliant streams of superheated plasma lanced down from orbit, turning New Busan's gleaming towers into pillars of flame. The colony's fusion reactors overloaded in chain reactions that lit up the planet's night side like an artificial sunrise. Within minutes, centuries of human achievement became smoking craters. Captain Somin placed a steady hand on Minho's shoulder. Her grip was firm, reassuring, but her words carried a promise that sent chills down his spine. "This isn't the end, Commander. This is just the beginning." As if responding to her words, the stars of the outer rim seemed to pulse with new intensity. Those distant suns marked the edge of known space, where only the desperate or the brave dared to venture. Beyond them lay the unknown, hostile worlds, ancient mysteries, and perhaps humanity's greatest opportunity to prove what they were truly capable of when pushed beyond all limits. Minho made a silent vow as the last of humanity's colonies burned behind them. The Federation had made a terrible mistake. They had taken a species known for exploration and innovation, stripped away everything comfortable and safe, and thrown them into the galaxy's harshest crucible. They had no idea what they had just unleashed upon the universe. The crimson sunrise of Kepler 442c painted the sky in shades that would have been impossible 50 years ago. Do-hyun Nam stepped out of the massive terraforming facility, his boots crunching on ground that had once been nothing but frozen methane and toxic dust. Now, rich black soil filled his weathered palms, soil that had taken decades to create. Grain by precious grain, the transformation was beyond miraculous. Where deadly storms had once raged across barren wastelands, engineered oak trees now swayed in breathable atmosphere. Crystalline rivers flowed where only ice had existed, and, in the distance, the lights of New Daegu Colony twinkled like earthbound stars. Children who had never seen Earth played in gardens that their grandparents had built from dreams and determination alone. "The atmospheric processes are working beyond all projections," reported Yoonji Park, her voice crackling through the comm system as she monitored the planet-wide transformation from orbit. As chief of the engineering corps, she had overseen the impossible, turning 17 dead worlds into thriving gardens that could support millions of human refugees and their alien allies. The engineering feat hadn't been easy. Each world presented unique challenges that would have broken lesser civilizations. On Glacius Prime, they had melted polar ice caps using controlled fusion reactions, creating vast oceans from what had been a frozen ball of ice. The Zephyrian refugees, with their natural ability to survive in low-oxygen environments, had worked alongside human engineers to build underwater cities that harvested geothermal energy from the planet's core. Kepler 442c had been perhaps the most difficult challenge. The planet's toxic atmosphere had required massive biodomes filled with specially engineered bacteria that consumed poisonous gases and expelled oxygen. It took 30 years before a human could breathe outside without an environmental suit, but now children ran freely through forests that stretched across entire continents. Deep beneath the planet's surface, in research stations hidden from any possible Federation scanning, humanity's greatest minds worked on projects that would have seemed like magic to their ancestors. Ji-won Song bent over her quantum tunneling apparatus, manipulating subatomic particles with precision that allowed instantaneous communication across impossible distances. Her breakthrough had connected all 17 human worlds in a network so that the Federation couldn't detect or intercept. "Transfer sequence successful," she announced to her research team, watching as complex data streamed from one side of the galaxy to the other in real time. "We can now coordinate defense patterns across all colonies simultaneously. If anyone attacks one world, every human fleet will know within seconds." In the adjacent laboratory, Tai Ho-yoon made adjustments to the consciousness transfer matrices that had revolutionized human survival in the harshest environments. The technology allowed human minds to interface directly with specially designed android bodies capable of surviving in vacuum, extreme radiation, or crushing gravity. Elite scouts could now explore gas giants, venture into black hole regions, and establish outposts in locations that would kill organic bodies instantly. Test Subject 17 is maintaining full personality coherence after 48 hours in synthetic form, Taiho reported to the medical board. "We've essentially made death optional as long as the consciousness matrix remains intact." The implications were staggering. Human explorers could now venture into the most dangerous regions of space, pushing the boundaries of known science while their organic bodies remained safely in stasis. They had become something new, a hybrid of biological creativity and technological transcendence that the Federation had never imagined possible. But perhaps humanity's greatest achievement wasn't technological, it was moral. While the Federation had written off entire species as genetically inferior or economically unviable, humanity had welcomed them with open arms. Narration coordinated the rescue operations from her command center on Sanctuary Station, a massive space habitat that served as headquarters for humanity's refugee assistance programs. Kithara Transport Group has cleared the asteroid field, she announced to her team, tracking the incoming ships on holographic displays. That's 3,000 more refugees safely away from Federation persecution zones. The Kithara were a peaceful insectoid species whose natural ability to manipulate electromagnetic fields made them invaluable for maintaining the complex shield systems that protected human colonies. The Federation had marked them for genetic cleansing simply because their appearance disturbed the aesthetic sensibilities of the ruling species. Among humans, they found not just safety but genuine friendship and respect for their unique abilities. The abandoned Zephyrian colonies presented a different challenge. These graceful aquatic beings had been left to die when their homeworlds' oceans became too polluted for the Federation to consider profitable. Human terraforming teams had restored their world's water systems using advanced filtration technology, while Zephyrian bioengineers contributed their knowledge of marine ecosystems to create underwater cities that served both species. In the secret council chambers of New Terra Command, Sunho Kim stood before representatives from all 17 human worlds and their dozens of alien allies. The chamber itself was a marvel of engineering, a transparent dome suspended in space between 3 moons, allowing participants to attend either physically or through quantum projection systems. 50 years ago, the Federation scattered us across the outer rim, expecting us to die quietly, Sunho declared. His words transmitted simultaneously to every human settlement and allied world. They believed that without their civilization to guide us, we would become nothing more than primitive survivors scraping out an existence on worthless rocks. The holographic displays around the chamber showed the reality of human achievement. Thriving cities on worlds the Federation had deemed uninhabitable, fleets of advanced starships constructed from resources mined in systems too dangerous for conventional exploration, scientific breakthroughs that pushed the boundaries of physics itself. Look around you, Sunho continued, gesturing to the representatives of dozens of species who had found new life among humanity. We're not just surviving, we're thriving. We've built something the galaxy has never seen before, a true alliance based on mutual respect rather than domination. Through the dome's transparent walls, the lights of human civilization stretched across the starfield like a constellation of hope. The Federation had tried to erase them from history, but instead had forged them into something far stronger than they had ever been before. In the darkness of space, humanity had found not just survival, but their true destiny as gardeners of the galaxy's forgotten and abandoned peoples. The holographic disguise flickered almost imperceptibly as Minji Yang adjusted her infiltration suit, the advanced technology reshaping her appearance down to the cellular level. To every scanner, every security system, and every pair of eyes on New Geneva Station, she appeared to be Kithara, a mid-level Centaurian spice trader with legitimate business credentials and a spotless record. The neural implants hidden beneath her disguised skull recorded everything: conversations, security protocols, troop movements, and most importantly, the growing panic in the Federation's highest command levels. New Geneva Station was the Federation's crown jewel of intelligence gathering, a massive orbital platform that monitored communications across 47 member systems. Its gleaming corridors buzzed with activity as agents from dozens of species coordinated surveillance operations, analyzed threat assessments, and maintained the complex web of espionage that kept the Federation's power structure intact. Kethara, your spice shipments have been most profitable this quarter, greeted Administrator Vextor, a towering Zenthari whose multiple arms gestured in what passed for friendly among his species. His compound eyes glittered with the satisfaction of someone skimming credits from every transaction that passed through his station. "The outer rim markets remain hungry for exotic flavors," Minji replied, in perfect Centaurian accent, her vocal implants modulating her voice to match her disguised species. "Though I hear disturbing reports about shipping routes being disrupted near the galactic edge." Vextor's expression darkened, his bioluminescent scales shifting to deeper hues of concern. "Pirate activity has increased significantly. Several entire colonies have gone silent without explanation. The Defense Council believes it's nothing more than equipment failures and communication breakdowns." Through her neural link, Minji transmitted every word directly to the quantum communication array hidden in her ship's cargo hold. The information traveled instantaneously across space through humanity's secret network, reaching analysts who would piece together the Federation's complete strategic picture from thousands of such conversations. Light years away in the Kepler sector, Wanbin Li sat surrounded by holographic displays that would have impressed even Federation intelligence officers. Data streams flowed like rivers of light around his command center, each piece of information tagged, analyzed, and cross-referenced with intelligence gathered from agents throughout Federation space. Pattern analysis confirms Ambassador Hyun's predictions from 75 years ago, Wanbin announced to his team of analysts, most of whom had been born long after humanity's exile. "The Federation isn't just corrupt, it's systematically cannibalizing itself." The evidence was overwhelming. On Valdris Prime, the ruling hegemony had enslaved 3 entire species under the guise of protective custody. The Zenthari Collective was strip mining worlds belonging to client species, leaving behind poisoned wastelands when the resources ran dry. Trade routes had become extortion networks where weaker species paid tribute to stronger ones for the privilege of conducting basic commerce. "Look at this financial data from the core worlds," reported analyst Kyung Min, highlighting corruption networks that stretched across multiple star systems. "The Federation Council is bleeding resources faster than they can extract them from member worlds. They're one major crisis away from complete economic collapse. But the most disturbing intelligence came from humanity's deep space monitoring stations hidden in the void between galaxies where no Federation ship would ever venture." Hana Shin floated in zero gravity within the sensor array of Watchpost 7, her augmented eyes interfacing directly with instruments that could detect energy signatures across intergalactic distances. "Contact confirmed at bearing 27 Mark 8, she reported, her voice tight with controlled fear. "Long-range sensors are picking up massive gravitational distortions approaching from beyond the galactic rim. Whatever's coming, it's bigger than anything in our databases." The readings defied explanation. Structures the size of small moons moving at sublight speeds, but generating energy signatures that suggested technology far beyond anything the Federation had ever encountered. Most disturbing were the reports from the rim colonies. Entire systems going dark without distress calls, their planets stripped of all organic matter with surgical precision. "Pattern suggests systematic harvesting," Hana continued, her analysis sending chills through every human who received her reports. "These aren't raiders or conquerors, they're something else entirely, something that treats entire biospheres as nothing more than raw materials." In the hidden depths of the Titan Nebula, where electromagnetic storms made detection impossible, Junsu Park commanded humanity's ghost fleet from the bridge of the HSC Silent Thunder. The stealth ships surrounding his flagship represented the pinnacle of human engineering, vessels that could phase shift through multiple dimensions, becoming invisible to every known form of detection while maintaining full combat capability. "Federation Patrol Group Zeta 9 just passed through our formation," reported his tactical officer, a hint of pride in her voice. "Range, 800 meters. They never even knew we were here." Junsu studied the tactical displays showing Federation fleet deployments across their border regions. The ships were impressive by the standards of 75 years ago, but humanity's exile had forced rapid evolution in military technology. Federation vessels still relied on predictable faster-than-light drives that created easily tracked gravitational wakes. Their weapons systems required minutes to charge between shots. Their shields operated on frequencies that human quantum disruptors could penetrate effortlessly. The Federation military hasn't fought a real war in 3 centuries, Junsu observed, analyzing combat readiness reports gathered by human infiltrators. They've grown soft, complacent. Their battle doctrines assume enemies will fight fair and follow established rules of engagement. The Ghost Fleet had been watching and waiting for decades, mapping every Federation military installation, identifying weaknesses in their defensive networks, and preparing for a conflict that seemed increasingly inevitable. Human strategists had run thousands of combat simulations, each one ending with the same conclusion. If humanity chose to reveal itself through military action, the Federation's defenses would crumble within weeks. But the approaching threat from beyond the galaxy changed everything. The entities that the intelligence networks had designated as devourers represented a force that could consume entire civilizations. Against such an enemy, the Federation's obsolete military would provide no more resistance than paper barriers against a raging fire. From her position aboard the deep space reconnaissance vessel Far Horizon, Unico transmitted the final pieces of humanity's intelligence puzzle. Her ship drifted at the very edge of the galaxy, where the last Federation monitoring stations maintained sporadic contact with the core worlds. Outer colonies. Epsilon through Tau have gone completely silent, she reported, her voice heavy with the weight of millions of lives potentially lost. Federation response fleets are refusing to investigate. High Command has classified the entire Outer Rim as an acceptable loss zone and ordered full military withdrawal to core system defense positions. The implications were staggering. The Federation was abandoning billions of sentient beings to face an unknown threat alone, sacrificing entire sectors to buy time for their core worlds. It was the same callous calculation that had led to humanity's exile, the powerful preserving themselves by abandoning the weak. Analysis complete, Una concluded, her transmission carrying the weight of destiny. The galaxy faces extinction and the Federation lacks the courage, unity and technology to mount an effective defense. It's time, Command. The galaxy needs us, whether they know it or not. In hidden bases across the Outer Rim, human fleets began powering up engines that had waited in silence for decades. The Watchers were ready to step out of the shadows and face whatever was coming from the dark. Between galaxies, humanity's exile was about to end, but not as supplicants begging for readmission. They would return as the galaxy's last hope for survival. Reality twisted around Admiral Seojun Han as the quantum fold drive completed its translation, space itself seeming to bend and flex before snapping back into normal configuration. The HSC Eternal Dawn materialized from dimensions that existed between heartbeats, its hull gleaming with energy patterns that made it appear almost alive. Around the flagship, 96 other vessels of the human Ghost Fleet phased into existence, each one a masterpiece of engineering that had been perfected during humanity's 75 years of exile. Before them stretched a scene of absolute horror. The Devourer swarm moved through space like a living plague, their bioships pulsing with organic rhythms as they systematically consumed everything in their path. These weren't mechanical vessels built by any recognizable intelligence. They were grown, evolved, shaped by eons of interstellar predation into the perfect instruments of galactic consumption. The largest Devourer creatures stretched for hundreds of kilometers, their translucent bodies filled with partially digested starships, space stations, and worse, entire cities that had been lifted whole from planetary surfaces. Smaller biovessels swarmed around them like antibodies, each one capable of dissolving Federation battlecruisers with acidic secretions that ate through hull plating in seconds. Federation fleet is in full retreat, reported Captain Aaron Lim from the tactical station, her voice carrying a mixture of disgust and professional assessment. Admiral Thekmore's command ship just abandoned the civilian evacuation transports. They're running for the hyperspace jump point at maximum acceleration. Seojun watched the Federation's once mighty 7th Fleet scatter like frightened children. These were the same warships that had burned humanity's colonies 75 years ago. the unstoppable instruments of galactic order that had enforced the Federation's will across thousands of star systems. Now they fled in panic from an enemy they couldn't understand or effectively fight. "Shall we reveal ourselves?" Arin asked, her hand hovering over the decloak controls that would announce humanity's return to galactic affairs. "Not yet," advised Che-Wano from her position at the Tactical Coordination Center. As humanity's foremost expert on Federation military doctrine, she had studied their weaknesses for decades. Let them see what their superior technology can accomplish against a real threat. Let them understand exactly how helpless they are without us. The Federation's vaunted Star Destroyers moved into attack formation, their plasma cannons charging, with energy patterns that painted space in brilliant colors. These were vessels that had conquered civilizations, weapons that could reduce planets to molten slag, shields that had never been penetrated by any known technology. They lasted exactly 17 minutes and 34 seconds. The lead destroyer, Hegemony's Pride, opened fire with its full battery of plasma weapons. The superheated energy struck the nearest Devourer bioship and simply disappeared, absorbed into the creature's organic matrix like water soaking into sand. In response, the bioship extended what looked like feeding tentacles that wrapped around the destroyer's hull and began to dissolve it from the outside in. "Hull breach on Deck 17, came the panicked transmission from the Federation vessel. "Structural integrity failing across all sections. Whatever this thing is secreting, it's eating through our armor like it's not even there." The other, Federation ships fared no better. Their shields, designed to deflect energy weapons and kinetic projectiles, proved useless against biological attacks that operated on principles their science had never encountered. Devourer swarm ships released clouds of microscopic organisms that infiltrated life support systems, turning the very air into a corrosive agent that dissolved crew members from the inside out. Federation command vessel is transmitting retreat. "Orders," reported Communications Officer Jin-Hyuk Park. "They're abandoning the entire Rigel sector to the Devourers." Seojun felt a familiar rage building in his chest, the same fury that had sustained humanity through decades of exile. The Federation was doing exactly what they had always done when faced with a crisis they couldn't control: sacrifice the weak to save themselves. Millions of civilians on the inner colonies would die while the core worlds built up their defenses with time purchased by other people's blood. "Admiral, the evacuation transports are requesting emergency assistance," Arin reported, her voice tight with controlled emotion. 47 ships carrying approximately 2 million refugees from the outer colonies. Federation escort vessels have abandoned them. Kyung-Min Jang, humanity's Supreme Fleet Commander, appeared on the main view screen via quantum entanglement communication. His weathered face showed the same determination that had carried humanity through their darkest years. "All human fleets decloak and engage," he ordered, his words transmitted simultaneously to every vessel in the Ghost Armada. "Show them what we've become." Reality shimmered as nearly 1,000 human warships materialized throughout the battle zone. Unlike the angular industrial design of Federation vessels, human ships flowed like liquid metal, their hulls incorporating organic curves that seemed to pulse with inner life. Quantum field generators made them appear to phase in and out of normal space, while their weapon systems charged with energy patterns that defied conventional physics. The galaxy watched in stunned silence as these mysterious vessels moved through the Devourer swarm like surgical instruments. Where Federation plasma weapons had been absorbed harmlessly, human quantum disruptors tore through bioship hulls by unraveling the molecular bonds that held them together. The creatures that had seemed invincible moments before began to dissolve into their component atoms. Su Bin-Wu coordinated the multi-species alliance that humanity had secretly forged during their exile. Kythera electromagnetic specialists provided targeting data that allowed human weapons to strike Devourer nervous systems directly. Zephyrian bioengineers had developed countermeasures to the creature's corrosive secretions. Dozens of other refugee species contributed their unique abilities to the coordinated assault. "Devourer Mothership Alpha is showing structural damage," reported Yejin Kang from the Weapons Control Center. The quantum cannons under her direction fired in perfect synchronization, their combined output creating cascading resonance waves that shattered the largest bioships into fragments. Target eliminated, moving to engagement zone beta. The battle was unlike anything the galaxy had ever witnessed. Human ships moved in three-dimensional formations that seemed to anticipate the Devourer's attacks before they happened. Their weapons struck with precision that suggested they understood the biological nature of their enemies far better than the Federation ever had. But it was more than superior technology that won the day. It was unity of purpose, coordination between species, and the hard-earned wisdom that came from surviving in the galaxy's harshest frontier regions. Humanity had learned to fight as a true alliance, rather than a collection of competing interests. Admiral, we're receiving a priority transmission from Federation Command, Communications Officer Jinyok announced. It's Admiral Thekmore. He's requesting immediate assistance and demanding to know our identity. Seojun looked around the bridge at the faces of officers who had been born in exile, who had grown up hearing stories of the Federation's betrayal, who had dedicated their lives to building something better in the darkness between stars. The moment of revelation had finally arrived. Communications Officer Min-jae Ryu activated the open broadcast channel that would carry humanity's message to every ship, every station, every inhabited world within 50 light-years. This is the human stellar commonwealth, he announced, his words carrying the weight of 75 years of exile, survival, and transformation. We have returned. In the space of 5 simple words, the galaxy's understanding of reality shattered completely. The species they had written off as extinct had not only survived, but had become something that defied every prediction their greatest minds had made. Humanity was back, and they brought with them the dawn of a new galactic age. The Great Assembly. Hall of New Terra stretched beneath a transparent dome that revealed the 3 moons dancing in perfect harmony above. This architectural marvel had been built not to intimidate but to inspire. Its flowing curves and living walls incorporated organic technology that pulsed gently with bioluminescent patterns. The air itself seemed alive, filtered through systems that the Zephyrian engineers had perfected during their partnership with humanity. At the center of this magnificent space, 12 beings sat at what had once been called the Council of Ancients. These were the same individuals who had condemned humanity to exile 75 years ago, the architects of galactic policy who had shaped the destiny of trillions of lives with their decisions. Now they appeared small and fragile in chairs, designed for beings far more imposing than they had become. Supreme Chancellor Jaemin Seo stood before them, his presence commanding not through intimidation, but through the quiet authority of someone who had earned his position through decades of service. Behind him, holographic displays showed the reality of what humanity had built in their years of exile. Thriving worlds, impossible technologies, and most importantly, a true alliance of species working together as equals. 75 years. Jargo, you condemned an entire species to death, Jaemin began, his voice carrying to every corner of the vast chamber through quantum resonance systems. You scattered 17 million humans across the galaxy's most hostile regions, expecting us to die quietly and be forgotten by history. Elder Morthak, whose crystalline features had dimmed with age, shifted uncomfortably in his seat. The ethereal being had been the Federation's oldest member, his species claiming superiority based on their ancient civilization and supposed genetic perfection. Now, his bioluminescent patterns flickered weakly with what could only be described as shame. Heron Beck, humanity's chief historian, activated the archive systems that had preserved every moment of humanity's trial and exile. The air above the assembly filled with 3-dimensional recordings of the original tribunal, showing the Council of Ancients in their former glory, pronouncing judgment with absolute certainty. You once called us unfit for civilization, she read from the official transcripts, her voice steady despite the weight of history. Quote, humanity represents a chaotic element that threatens the stability of our ordered society. Their unpredictable nature and tendency toward violence makes them unsuitable for membership in civilized galactic community. End quote. The recordings showed the vote, unanimous except for 3 abstentions. They showed the destruction of human colonies, the scattering of refugees, the erasure of humanity from official records. But they also showed something else. The faces of the council members, confident in their superiority, certain they were protecting the galaxy from a dangerous influence. Yet when your civilization faced extinction, Heron continued, when the Devourer swarm consumed entire sectors while your fleets fled in panic, it was humanity that saved you. It was the species you deemed unfit for civilization that preserved civilization itself. The silence that followed was profound. Through the transparent dome above, the lights of New Terra's orbital facilities created a constellation of activity. Shipyards where vessels from dozens of species worked side by side, research stations where breakthrough technologies emerged from collaborative efforts, and most importantly, refugee processing centers where beings abandoned by the Federation found new hope. Ji-hoon Moon stepped forward, carrying a crystalline data storage device that contained the new Galactic Charter. Unlike the Federation's rigid hierarchy based on species classification, this document represented something the galaxy had never seen: true equality based on contribution and merit, rather than genetic accidents of evolution. The Human Stellar. Commonwealth proposes a new order, Ji-hoon announced, his words broadcast simultaneously to every inhabited world through the quantum communication network. No more species hierarchies, no more classification of beings as genetically superior or economically viable. Every world, every people, equal representation based on what they contribute to our shared future. The Charter was revolutionary in its simplicity. Instead of the Federation's complex caste system that divided species into rulers and subjects, the new order recognized that every form of intelligence brought unique value to galactic civilization. The Kithara's electromagnetic manipulation abilities were considered as valuable as the Zenthari's industrial capacity. The Zephyrian's biological expertise held equal weight with humanity's innovative engineering. Elder Vorthak, the ancient being who had cast the deciding vote for humanity's exile, struggled to his feet. His once impressive frame now seemed brittle, with age and the weight of his decisions. When he spoke, his voice carried the tremors of someone confronting the magnitude of his mistakes. We made a grave error, he admitted, his words causing ripples of shock throughout the assembly. In our arrogance, we believed that age meant wisdom, that tradition guaranteed truth. We feared change so much that we condemned the very force that could have saved us from stagnation. How can we possibly make amends for such blindness? Seoyoung Chae, the Commonwealth's chief diplomat, approached the elder with surprising gentleness. Her smile carried no trace of triumph or revenge, only the patient understanding of someone who had learned that healing required forgiveness rather than retribution. By learning, she replied, her voice warm with genuine compassion. By growing beyond the prejudices that almost destroyed us all. By proving that the galaxy we're building together is better than the one any of us inherited from our ancestors. The transformation ceremony that followed would be remembered throughout galactic history. Dongyun Yu activated the quantum communications array, his fingers dancing across control surfaces that connected every inhabited world in the galaxy. The new charter spread through space at faster-than-light speeds, carrying with it the promise of a future where cooperation replaced competition, where diversity became strength rather than division. Boyoung Im coordinated the peaceful transition of power from her position at the Central Command Hub. Federation military assets were redistributed, not as spoils of war, but as tools for collective defense. Former Federation worlds could choose their level of participation in the new order, from full membership to observer status with no coercion or punishment for their past allegiances. Taeyang Shin oversaw the most delicate aspect of the transition, ensuring that the former Federation's military forces became part of a truly integrated defense network. Human quantum technology was shared freely with former enemies, while alien innovations were incorporated into Commonwealth designs. The result was a defensive capability that made the old Federation fleets look like toys by comparison. As the ceremony concluded and the new galactic order became official reality, Yebin No stood at the observation deck overlooking New Terra's capital city. The streets below bustled with beings from hundreds of species, all working together toward common goals. Children of different worlds played together in parks, where the plants came from a dozen different biospheres, while overhead, transport ships carried goods and passengers between worlds that had once been enemies. "We came back not as conquerors, but as gardeners," she whispered to herself, watching the lights of civilization spread across the planet's surface like a living constellation. And now, the galaxy will bloom. The irony was not lost on anyone who understood the full scope of what had happened. The Federation had exiled humanity to preserve their established order, fearing that human unpredictability would disrupt their carefully maintained stability. Instead, that exile had forged humanity into something far more powerful, a species that could unite the galaxy's forgotten and abandoned peoples into a force for genuine progress. The exiled had become the shepherds of galactic civilization. The forgotten had become the remembered architects of a new age. And humanity once again had proven that their greatest strength was not in the technologies they could build or the wars they could win, but in their unshakable belief that every thinking being deserved a chance to reach for the stars. In the end, the galaxy had not been conquered by superior firepower or political manipulation. It had been transformed by the simple revolutionary idea that civilization meant lifting everyone up rather than keeping anyone down. The end.